Welcome back, everybody, to another amazing edition of the USFL podcast. I'm your host, the ref representing Pro Football Newsroom. That's the number one source in alternative football news. We got a lot to talk about. Surprisingly, with the offseason, you're probably looking to my right and saying, man, that is not Zach Kyleman. Well, he's over across the big pond over in Ireland drinking some Guinness, representing the USFL. But here today, we got my man, James Larsen, which if you were at summer stock, if you were at the championship game, if you were watching on TV, you might have seen him on the sidelines. You probably know him well from the newsroom, pumping out articles almost daily, hooking us up with the recaps. How you doing today, my friend?
We're here to talk football. How could I be doing any better? I'm hyped. Every time we get a chance to do this, it's just like the highlight of my day, seriously. So
that's what I like to hear. Man, and we're going to talk about some of our antics at the championship game. We got a couple news items to talk about. Before we get that, a couple housekeeping items. Social media, what are you doing if you're not following us at USFL Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Hit the buttons, make it happen. If you're watching the show over on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. Click the bell. It builds flipping morale. I'm telling you.
Click the bell.
If you're a fan
what are you
of
doing?
Like the Panthers, the Maulers especially, get some of that morale in the offseason. Maybe they'll help your franchise, your squad, get to that next level where they need to go. I mean, the Panthers are already looking pretty good with that number one pick throughout the next draft, but we'll get there.
Rumor has it if you click the bell, it'll even get you some pizza if you're a Maulers fan. So.
Tired of eating chicken salad? Hit that bell. Get signed up. Spring stock's gone. Summer stock's gone. Not much to talk about as far as events, but I will say this. Once we know more about when the USFL is kicking off, you better guarantee there's going to be another spring stock, so we'll keep you updated there. We're also doing a giveaway. Once we hit 5K, you could win an official USFL jersey. And I mean, you know what? We're going to even up the ante here. We're trying to hit that 5K. Now they have personalized jerseys. They're a little bit pricier. I'm going to bump it up. You're going to get a personalized jersey now. So make sure you hit the button, hit that bell, get signed up. News time, quick intro. I mean, now with summer stock out of the way, I feel like the intro is like 10 seconds. But we got some players signed to the NFL from the USFL.
We need like some like flashing lights or something. This is big stuff.
Like big news here. I mean, I'm actually surprised it took this long. I thought we'd see it a little bit sooner. And I guess what it is I look back to the AAF, I look back to the XFL, but then the circumstances were way different because both of those seasons got cut early. And I think the NFL was more like, okay, let's get some of these guys, get them some coverage really with some money. Whereas now with the USFL, it made it a full season. They had a little bit of breathing room. There wasn't maybe as much urgency there, but we got 3 of them already. One dropped right before we're recording this here. The first one up, though, Christian Sam, linebacker, going to the Dallas Cowboys, New Orleans Breakers. So we're seeing, kind of that regional feel moving over. And I'll say we'll see a trend here once we talk about the next story. But interestingly enough, the Dallas Cowboys seem to be all about this. And so that's the first one, Christian Sam. Now, the one that dropped right before we're recording here, Channing Stribling, and I mean, come on now.
That's the one that I'm so hyped about. It's funny because I was literally in our Discord a little bit earlier today. I was like, man, when is Channing Stribling? I said, like, when is Channing Stribling going to get? He has to get a look, right? And next thing I know, I find out that he gets signed to the Washington Commanders. So that's so well deserved. I mean, I think he's one of the first. Like, it's so obvious he should have been one of the first to get signed. Hell of a year. I mean, what a player! 7 interceptions, 8 games. I mean, you don't even have to explain what he did. He was just awesome. I mean, he locked down, and it was fun watching him too, because and he openly admitted it. He'd play with the quarterbacks. He'd let him get a pass, he'd let him get a couple passes in, and then he'd just go pick him off. Such a savage.
Yeah. Well, the Commanders are another one of these teams that they're used to picking up some of these spring guys. Let's remember Tyler Heineke's over there.
And I mean. My guy.
I think this is a great pick. And what I love is there's actually a good amount of Commanders fans that watch spring football. I understand because I'm a Lions fan, so I watch spring football so I could see winning teams. I understand. But one of our
and then you rooted for the Panthers.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what happens to me. I bring that Lions curse along with me wherever I go. That's why, with the Roughnecks, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, I can't. I maybe keep it down that I'm a fan of this team. They might catch on.
You're the reason why they got shut down.
I'm telling you, I think God sat there and said, wait. A winning team that Stefan's rooting for? Coof for you. Coof for you.
Time to send a worldwide pandemic to shut that down.
But either way, we got Channing Stribling, and I mean, what a great player. And I know Seth Lessons, who was over here with us at Summer Stock, he is probably happy about this one. Stars fans, you got to love it. But moving on to the last one, another guy moving on to the Commanders here, Dawan Neal, another DB, moving on to the team. So we have 2 for the Commanders, 1 for the Cowboys. And then when we look down to the next list, these are players that we know, at least, and there's probably more, but these are ones that we know are getting a workout. We got Cavonte Turpin and Maurice Alexander both trying out for the Cowboys. So we could see the Cowboys and the Commanders, which, let's be honest, both have some pieces to fill, get some of that spring league love. And here's the great thing. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, the one thing I want to mention is, for one, Turpin. I mean, of course he's going to get NFL looks. I mean, MVP of the USFL. I mean, he took the league by storm. Really, once it hit week 3, week 4, Mike Riley started to get him involved, and then that was that. I mean, he just took over, led the league in receiving yards, even though he only caught 53 passes. I mean, that's insane. You look at Lance Lenore had like 88 and still didn't have the amount of yards that he did. So it goes to show, I mean, just how incredible he was. But I think what'll be interesting to see is, Dallas might be looking for a guy like Cavonte Turpin in their offense, because if you look at the receivers that they have right now, they're a lot bigger guys like CeeDee Lamb, and those types of players. They need like that smaller, because they don't have Cole Beasley anymore. They need like a smaller slot receiver that can put in different rotations and stuff, and Turpin might just fit the bill.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes me excited to watch the NFL. Like I'll always watch the Lions games. I'll always get sucked into that. But you know what? I'm going to have to watch a Cowboys game or two if these guys make it to the final roster. And even the Commanders,
right.
dare I say, I'll watch a Commanders game if these guys end up making that final roster. But
I ended up watching quite a few Commanders games last season just because of Heineke.
I mean, that playoff game, when he played against Tom Brady, not last year, but the year before, my God, that dude, that was the one shirt I'm still upset that I didn't get. Breaking T had a shirt of him diving into the end zone, where he knocked the pylon with the ball.
That was such an awesome moment. That was like, because the football was finally back, and like, even though we didn't know what the heck was going on with spring football at the time, that at least made spring football fans happy. Seeing him die for that was one of the coolest moments I remember watching, really, the last couple of years.
For sure. And that's what's going to be awesome is like going into this NFL season. I mean, we've seen AAF guys make plays. We've seen XFL guys make plays and become like, Donald Parham, right? I mean, he was doing some stuff before he got injured there. And he's still looking like he's probably going to come back. Now with the USFL guys, like we have a good mix of spring guys up in the NFL. And then the great part about it is, if it doesn't work out, they still have a home now with the USFL. They have a place to fall back on, right? They're not going back to, what do I do now? I'll tell you this, the Stars are taking back anity they can. The Generals are going to take back whoever they can, right?
Absolutely.
And so it works out for everybody involved. Go on.
Sorry, the one thing I wanted to mention about Channing Stribling is, of course, we talked about him earlier about how good he was this year, but also, like, he was in the Alliance, he was in the XFL, and he was in the Spring League, and he was great in every single level, every single league. So I'm so happy to see him like finally get like an NFL opportunity, and hopefully he sticks, because he deserves it. And like, I'd love to see him back in the USFL, of course, but I mean, come on. He deserves to be in the NFL.
And I'm not even going to be mad about it, even if he goes and plays for the Cowboys, right?
Well, right. The Cowboys? Yeah. I mean, wait. But I mean, again, like, that's the stuff that like proves that spring football is legitimate, because like, we're the ones that believe in the product. We're the ones that believe in the talent there. So like, it's awesome to see them get to the NFL and see like, hey, NFL guys believe in these guys too.
No, absolutely.
You should have listened to us 12 months ago when we talked about this guy, but hey, I'm glad you're finally,
Well, and I mean, this is what's good about spring leagues in general. It gives these guys a chance to showcase their skills not just in film, but on broadcast TV. So, I mean, there's thousands and thousands upon thousands of players to scout. So it's easy to get lost in the cracks, fall into the crevices. But once you're on TV, I mean, again, and you pull out the MVP spot and you know, all the things that we mentioned before, then it makes it easier to kind of say, oh, why have we never looked at this guy or these guys or whoever it may be?
Right.
And I mean, there's plenty of NFL teams that are struggling to find players. I mean, I'm a fan of one of them with the Lions. I can't believe that they're not on this list looking for guys. But I mean, the Cowboys and the Commanders are perfect fits for these guys. I mean, I think about like the Jaguars and a lot of these other teams that are just kind of in rebuilding phases perpetually almost. You know what? Those are the perfect teams to give these guys a shot because you know what? Sometimes that's all it takes is one little adjustment, one boost to the locker room morale even, right? Maybe one of these guys clicked the bell, got a little morale, and carries that over into the locker room. Now, I'm curious.
Exactly. And you know that these guys are like giving 110% all the time. I mean, like Turpin, look at his story, man. I mean, he's just been through it. He's been in multiple different leagues. I mean, he was in fan-controlled football just last year. Then he played in the spring league. Then he went over and played in the ELF. And now he found a home in the USFL and then won MVP of the league. I mean, that is just such an awesome story and goes to show, like, this is why we need spring football. This is why we need these platforms to give a platform to these athletes.
So now that we have these names, I'm curious, what names do you think belong on this list? Or maybe that you're surprised? I mean, first and foremost.
Well, I'm definitely surprised by DeJuan Neal. Not because he's not a good athlete. I think he was really good for New Jersey, and we didn't get to see him play a whole lot because he was dealing with injuries for a lot of the season. So that one is a little bit interesting to me just because he doesn't have a ton of film. But hey, I mean, the Commanders like what they saw, and I'm happy that he got the opportunity for sure.
Now, who do you think is next? Like, who's the guy that we're going to be hearing about next is getting a tryout? I mean, me personally, I feel like it's a shame that we haven't heard anything about Darius Victor, which he has a cameo now. If you want to get a cameo message by Darius Victor, head over to Cameo, look him up. $45. You know, I mean, that's pretty affordable. I was looking at, can't remember which football player it was, but it was like $500. And then if it was a business inquiry, it went up to like $1,400. And I said, that's a little too rich for my blood. But hey, Darius Victor, I might hit you up on the Cameo. Why the hell not?
$45 for some thick thighs?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, so that's one name that I'm surprised we haven't seen come through the pipeline yet.
So the big name for me, which we don't know what the heck's going to happen with this now. And I feel terrible. Is Case Circus. I mean, I think, definitely stood above everyone else in the league where he deserved that shot. I mean, he was doing everything possible. If he didn't get injured, they would have won the championship game. I'm standing by that. Too. As much as I love the Stallions, don't get me wrong. But what a shame. I really hope that he heals up quickly and like they can work that out because he deserves to be on an NFL field this summer. I mean, this fall.
No, that was the worst part of the championship game, especially that it happened like late in the game. I mean,
when they had momentum and control, like they were in, but you know, it's football and it happens. But yeah, he's definitely someone that should still get a look, even though he's injured. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, he played so good. I mean, what more do you want from a quarterback? I mean, he's scrappy, he makes plays, he throws the ball very accurate. I mean, his deep ball was incredible. I mean, the one throw I keep going back to is I think week 8 when they played Michigan and he dropped that dime to Pro Wells in like double coverage. That throw was insane. And then he took off for a 79-yard run like the next play. It was like, dude, this guy has got to get a chance. But we'll see because he's got a bit of an asterisk with his injury. There are so many players that deserve at least a chance at an NFL camp. The offensive player that I think really deserves a chance is Reggie Corbin, running back from Michigan. I mean, he led the league in almost every category. Of course, he didn't finish first, but he did miss a couple weeks with injury, and that's why. But at least he led the league in like yards per carry and not touchdowns. What was it? One of those categories. I mean, he was incredible. So explosive. He definitely deserves a chance.
For sure. And him and Darius Victor, I look at those guys like if I'm an NFL team that has a problem getting the ball into the end zone near the goal line, those are two guys that I want. Especially, I mean, Darius Victor, one, he's very Darren Sproles-esque, right? Like he'll be able to squeeze in. And then with the power of those thighs, it's no joke, right? Thick thighs save lives. And he's got, I can't remember the number, what they talked about.
30 inches.
30 inches. I wanted to say that, but I felt like I was exaggerating. Whenever I hear that, that's insane.
That's what Brock Hewitt said.
That is insane, right? So I wouldn't doubt to see him at least get a look. And I bet you we see a good 20 to 50 players get looks and a good amount of them get picked up, at least for that preseason while they have that expanded roster. And I think we'll see a good handful make it into the regular season.
And the interesting thing with Victor is, people might be wondering, like, well, why isn't he on an NFL team if he's this good? I mean, the chance he had with the New Orleans Saints a few years ago, their running back room consisted of, like, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, and, like, Adrian Peterson or something like that. So, like, those are three incredible backs. Like, what? It would be almost impossible for anyone else to get in that room, and then no other NFL team gave him a chance, really. So I'm glad that he was able to get this tape finally, and because he was good in the XFL. They just he didn't get a ton of touches, and then the league crumbled. So I'm very happy for him, and I think it's definitely a criminal offense if there's not any NFL organizations talking about his thighs. I mean, you gotta be talking about it at some point. I mean, there's no way he doesn't get a look. There's just no way.
Well, I'm hoping that next week on the next show, I know you won't be here, but Zach and I will hopefully be talking about him on this list of players working out for the USFL. And I actually expect next week we'll have some more players. Maybe we'll see Cavonte, Turpin, and or Maurice Alexander get picked up by the Cowboys, joining maybe not one of their teammates, but one of their USFL alumni at up in Dallas, down in Dallas for you.
Right. Right. Yeah, I guess we'll see. And like Maurice Alexander, that's another guy. Like he's gone under the radar this whole season. He was all USFL special teamer. He was a great receiver. I mean, I know he gets a little bit overshadowed by a couple of those other Philadelphia receivers, but he was great in the receiving core this year. And kick returning, I mean, no one really did it any better besides arguably Turpin, and that's about it. I mean, he was sensational, and he literally put Philadelphia in the championship game with that final punt return. So
exactly right.
He's a guy well over 1,000 all-purpose yards in the season. What more could you ask of him to do?
No, and that's why, unfortunately, I think only one of these guys is going to get picked up by the Cowboys. They're probably looking at that. We want a good punt receiver, kickoff receiver, whatever. And, I mean, those are the two guys that you would want from the league. I mean, you look at that semifinals game is like, hold my beer, here's how you run it back, right? So it'll be fun to see. Like I said, I'll be tuning in. I always watch the preseason anyway when it comes to the NFL, but especially now more so this year because I think we'll definitely see a lot of these guys play in the preseason, and then someone will definitely trim down, but we'll see the carryover go into the season. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be very interesting. Now, I will say there's a couple players that going into the season I thought like, man, these are the guys that are going to get to the NFL. And then after watching them play, I was like, are they?
Thinking about Shea Patterson?
And one that I have to mention, as much as I hate having to mention it, I'm definitely going to have a lot of DMs from someone named after a bird. But Kyle Sloter.
I mean,
Kyle Sloter.
He's got other things.
Should not be on an NFL team.
He's got a lot of things on his mind. Here's the thing: he's trying to solve world hunger. That's all you need to know, right? We've already been through the gauntlet. If you're not a part of the Discord, make sure you click the link down below because Ducky will tell you there's a reason they threw that semifinals game. They had bigger plans on that Sunday, July 3rd. There was, what did he say? The World Conference of, I don't know. They were there doing good things for the world. Yeah.
He'll let you know.
I'm so glad. I think you were the first person I text when I was like, man, I think I left it there. And then thank goodness I found the card.
I'm so glad you found it. That is a piece of USFL history. But joking aside, I was definitely disappointed by his play. I know he was dealing with injuries, and I know that, he had a tough time a few of those weeks. But, I mean, especially down the stretch when he was getting healthier, he was still making a lot of bad decisions. And, that's the thing where I feel like because he's had NFL experience, he might just get another tryout or something. But I feel like there's other quarterbacks in the league that are more deserving of getting a tryout over him, like DeAndre Johnson, even Luis Perez, who I don't think is NFL caliber. He's a great spring league quarterback. Don't see him in the NFL, but even him should at least get a look over Slaughter. I feel like Slaughter. I want to see him play in the USFL again this season. I want to see him have a great spring league year, and then maybe get back to the NFL.
Have a full season without being injured, because there was it wasn't just one. He pulled his groin. He had an elbow injury. He had an ankle injury.
Right.
He had something going on with his knee. I mean, this dude was beat up.
Oh, and don't get me wrong. I mean, he still played pretty well and went through a lot. But I don't feel like his decision making is NFL level quite yet.
Exactly.
And the injuries play a part of that for sure.
Oh, sure.
But I'd like to see him healthy in the USFL first before getting NFL.
Well, honestly, I'm sure the Breakers fans would agree with you, because they probably want him back next year, right? And
right. I mean, a healthy Kyle Slaughter is probably the best quarterback going, at least that we know of, that would be going back into the league.
For sure.
You know? So
that's what
we'll see him and Tamu.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm so curious to see, is which guys come back, which ones, clearly there's going to be some guys that just don't come back, don't move to the NFL. In certain instances, some might even jump to the XFL, depending on what their contract looks like, when they signed, how all that went down. Right. So that'll definitely be interesting to see how it shakes out. I would love to see Tamu back. I would love to see Slaughter back. Josh Love is another guy that, I mean, he kind of got the raw end of the stick with the Maulers at the beginning of the season, but when he went to the Panthers, he was looking pretty solid until he janked up one of his fingers.
Yeah, and then he just kept getting injured, which was a shame. Because and actually, we talked a little bit about, did we talk about this at Summer Block? I can't remember. But Michigan's got quite the crossroads here at quarterback, because you've got Josh Love, Eric Barrier, and Paxton Lynch. That all looks great in those final few weeks. I mean, they only won 2 games, but I mean, Josh Love played a heck of a game against New Orleans, and Michigan should have won that game. I mean, they had that missed field goal. Love got hurt towards the end, and that was that. They should have beat New Orleans. Paxton Lynch played a great game against Pittsburgh that final game, and Eric Barrier put up some good numbers against New Jersey. So I mean, we'll see. I feel like Barrier has the most upside, but we also haven't seen much of him. So we'll see. I mean, he still has a lot of growing to do. I like Paxton Lynch. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too. I didn't think I would.
I know, because I was like, he's gonna be your typical and it didn't go well in the NFL. Gonna come to the spring league. People think he'd do well, then he won't. But when he was healthy, which was very rare, he played great. I mean, that final week really made me think of what a season could have looked like for Michigan had they had him all year instead of sticking with Shea Patterson for 6 weeks.
Well, and honestly, because let's not forget, he did somewhat help lead them to their first win of the season, but that's when he ended up getting injured. If he didn't get injured, I mean, that game could have been like a blowout, and they could have carried that momentum.
And it was a blowout still.
Yeah.
It was 24-0.
Yeah, I mean...
But yeah, the funny thing is that both of his healthy games was against Pittsburgh, and they won both, and that was it. Yeah,
and you know what? And I get to be one of the teams that the only team that the Maulers beat, so I'm all in on that, I guess.
But you're the only team that beat Birmingham.
I know, that was the nice trade-off. Isn't that funny how spring football works? You could lose to the worst team, but then beat the best team. And that's why I'm telling you, people might think I'm crazy. I wouldn't put it past the spring football gods if somehow Kirby Wilson came out with a stellar all-star team next year. Maybe he lets him eat pizza. I don't know. Maybe it's chicken salad pizza. Maybe that's the deal. But I could see it happening somehow. Kirby Wilson, he just gets that guy. He gets that guy that's been under the radar.
Maulers announced a new offensive coordinator, Bobby Flay, coming into the league.
So I'm so looking forward to next year and just seeing where the shuffling is, because we're going to see new players coming in.
I want to see a blockbuster trade of Tamu to Houston.
Me too, because I'm telling you,
I want to see that happen.
Tamu got robbed. He got robbed.
Because Houston, Tampa Bay needs a ton of pieces, right? So Houston could offer some of their pieces, because Houston's got a lot of pieces. Houston just needs a quarterback, so they could offer a couple of their pieces and maybe a draft pick or two, and see if they can pull Tamu over there. I mean, I've been saying this all along. If they had Tamu, they'd be in the playoffs, and they would have had a chance of beating Birmingham. That's for sure. I mean, they beat him with Kenji Bahar.
The Gamblers. I mean, that's really, I think, when it struck me that I carry a curse around with me and the teams I root for, because how do you lose beyond the first half lead? That's fine. That happens all the time. And, usually it's the other way around. The Lions are losing at the half, and then that fourth quarter, at least when Stafford was around, he would just go gangbusters, and all of a sudden it's like a 3-point game and it's anyone's gamble. The Gamblers, 3 weeks in a row, losing on the final play of the game. I mean, that'll kill you. And I remember on that third week, I turned to my wife. I said, they're going to screw this up. She said, no, we're winning. I said, just watch. Final play of the game. There it is. She's like, oh, you called it. I said, I didn't want to call it.
And then it was the final play of the game for like 6 weeks in a row.
But I mean, it's sad. Promising though. I look at it,
and the thing is, they were doing that with Clayton Thorson and Kenji Bahar. So if they get a confident, and I don't want to diss those guys because they are talented, but I feel like Houston's better off just trying to invest in someone who can actually lead them to the playoffs. So we'll see. Speaking of Houston, it was hilarious to me how like there was so much talent those first several weeks. And all Skip Bayless talked about was Clayton Thorson. I was like, what was his obsession with Clayton Thorson?
Here's what it is.
One good game, and that would be the only highlight on their show.
Here's what I'm thinking. They probably looked at their highlights from like college, because I'm telling you, if you look at Clayton Thorson at Northwestern, that dude was just balling out, man. I mean, highlights for one thing, because every play's great, but when I was watching, I was like, oh boy, in that preseason going into the season, I was like, man, Houston's going to rock it. Being at that first game, and they didn't win. They didn't like blow them out, but they came out on top, beat the Panthers. And I said, oh wow, Houston's about to have another winning team when it comes to spring football. Then week 2, then week 3, then week 4. I'm like, oh my God, at least we ended up with 3 wins on the season. We don't end up in like the bottom echelon. So we're at least above the Panthers. We're above the Maulers.
And you were trending like way up. So
there's definitely a lot of promise for next year.
That's the thing that's awesome about the USFL. We're getting a freaking year 2.
I know.
So let's go.
Year 2. I like that is like, it seems silly to talk about like, oh, well, they're only going into their second season. Let's not forget here, it's been almost 40 years since this has happened. And I'm ecstatic about it. And like I said, we might take some weeks off throughout the off season with the show, but at least right now, there's things to talk about. We're seeing guys getting signed.
So much to talk about.
And I mean, even when there isn't, you've been putting out some good columns on the site as well. So if you haven't been checking out USFLnewsroom.com daily, you should be, because even in the off season, we got things going on.
Oh yeah. You should check out, if you haven't, you better go check out the latest one, the piece I wrote on just the infrastructure with Fox that the USFL has, because that's the thing that gets me most excited about this league and moving forward, is just the strong, infrastructure that they have with the league. I mean, they're setting up such a great foundation to build upon, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea with the hubs and this and that. They're successful in year 1. They're going to be successful in year 2, year 3, and moving forward. I mean, it looks fantastic. I mean, they made money in year 1. Since when have we seen a spring league do that?
I don't think ever.
Like, that's something I thought was impossible.
Yeah, me too. I mean, with any business, even if you're starting a t-shirt shop, a coffee shop, it's like 3 to 5 years before you're pulling a profit. And so looking at the graveyard of spring leagues, I mean, that's pretty flippin' promising. And it's the things that, a lot of people gripe about, the hubs. Well, you know what? The hubs made it to where they could make a profit this year. And now next year, we're looking at 2 to 4 hubs. Probably 2 is my guess. But you know what? I'm going to wait for the official announcement.
I've been talking with some people, and like, it definitely seems like there's a bit of a power struggle with Fox right now. Like, some of them want 4, some of them want 2. I'm not going to name names, but we'll see who ends up coming out of the pack.
I think it just comes down to what's smart and what's right and what ensures a season 3. And I mean, the hope would be is by the third season we see all the teams in all 8 cities. Would I be surprised if it didn't happen? No, not really. I would definitely think we would see the hubs expand. At worst case scenario, I think we'd have 4 hubs, 2 teams per
4,
hub.
8.
Yeah.
Like it might double every year. Now, if they go up to 4 this year, then I think we would see 8 for sure in year 3. I hope that they would just go to all 8 in year 3 regardless, but we'll see.
I can't be mad at
either
them.
way. We have football to watch.
As long as one of those hubs is Houston soon, you're all right. And actually, I wouldn't mind if they do have a hub in Houston, so I get at least the luxury like Birmingham had. I know a lot of people didn't show up to the other games that weren't Birmingham teams, but I'll tell you, if I was in Birmingham, I would have been at every game every weekend.
I know. I've been like, I'm so mad. I'm all the way up here in northern Michigan, where like it's just so far away. Because like I would have loved to just go. Those games would have been so much fun. Like there's so much good gameplay, and like pretty much every single one. I mean, I can't think of a game that was like super boring. The funny thing is that like I think the most boring game of the year was that Week 8 matchup with New Orleans and Birmingham. That was just like a stinker.
And here's the thing too. It probably didn't help that everybody was going into that game like this game is gonna be the offensive powerhouse of all games. The defense is gonna be cooking. The offense is gonna be cooking. But no, it was just the defense was rattling the hell out of both the quarterbacks. Not much going on either way. It really was anybody's game, but Birmingham just, I mean, there was 2 teams.
The slightest of margin.
Yeah, well, there was 2 teams, really 3, I think, that had like a full team where every segment, every group was kind of putting in 100%. You had Birmingham, you had New Jersey, and then I would even say the Stars. Maybe not so much at the beginning of the year. Yeah. I mean, Brian Scott was pulling them out of some issues early, but then they had some line issues, they had some running back issues, and then I mean, they peaked at the right time, and it wasn't for that injury.
Thing is, they had those issues because they were injured. Matt Colburn was not healthy for the first half of the season. Darnell Holland was in and out. Brian Scott, who I think would have been the MVP of the league had he not gone down. I mean, he was playing at the highest level. He was leading the league in every single category. And there's no way. I mean, him and Andrews are like a duo made in heaven. And I can't wait to see them in year 2. That is going to be so fun. I mean, we'll see what happens with the whole Cookus situation. I don't see the 2 of them being on the Stars in season 2. There's no way that they're going to be on the same team again because they're like 2 of the top quarterbacks in the league. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, yeah, the Stars really put it together in the second half, and it all started with Colburn getting healthy, and that hurt him in the championship for sure. Because Colburn, I mean, he just turned that offense around, and I think. It was week 8. I had put out a piece on how the Stars were kind of being slept on. And one of the neat facts that I had seen in there is like weeks 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, they like hardly ran the ball at all. And then, or it just wasn't much. Like they weren't really actively running the ball. And then Colburn came back and their runs per game like almost doubled. And like that's when their offense just started going crazy because Colburn was going off. And then Cookus just started playing out of his mind, and next thing you know, they made it to the championship. Yeah, so.
I mean, Cookus, that was the biggest shame. And I told you he was on my flight back to Houston. I didn't have it in me to go bother him when he was injured. But, I mean, hey, Cookus, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the show. Apparently, you're in the Houston area, so I'll buy you a beer, too. Speaking of going to games, though, so this was this your first spring football game that you went to with the USFL Championship?
Yes.
I mean, that's a good one to go to. And I mean, not only did you go to the game, but you were there on the sidelines, official photographer for the USFL Newsroom, which we haven't put them out yet. I know you put out a couple on social media, but I'm actually going to create a page with all of the images that you've edited. There's going to be a watermark on there, but if you want a copy, we can arrange something. So reach out to James. There's a email on there and we can work something out, especially if you're a player. If you want any of these pictures, we'll make it happen. But I mean, let's talk about it. The overall experience, one, I know going into the game, you didn't really have an expectation to be on the field. Somehow we were able to make it happen. I mean,
Thank you, Fox. That was like the best experience of my life, and I'm not even making that up. So thank you for making that work when it did.
Well,
Anyways,
Well,
continue.
I mean, first and foremost, I know the number's ridiculous, but remind me again, how many photos did you take during this game? Because I was thinking like a couple hundred.
And I'm so glad I packed them because I was going into this trip thinking that I was gonna like write or help you write the article or something. But I decided to bring all my camera equipment. I was like, why not? Just in case. I was in New York, so I was doing photo shoots there and whatnot. So I ended up having both my cameras on me the whole game, and I took 2,200 pictures between the two of them. So I still need to go back and edit more because there's a ton more that need to be edited. But I just at least got through the first batch.
I mean,
it's been a lot of late nights, 1, 2 in the morning, just going through stuff, editing. But I love it. I'm so happy I can do what I can do. And
I would say because I've had the opportunity of being on the sidelines in a couple instances. I was at the Spring League Championship. I covered all the Roughnecks games with the XFL, and I think that's it. But I mean, there's clearly a difference in atmosphere when you're out on the field, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're seeing the play, you can hear them, you can see them celebrate, see them get mad, and then even looking at the fans' perspective, it's almost like a whole different world. Like. There has to be some funny moments that happened while you were down there, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. There were so many funny moments. But first and foremost, like it was so neat, like being on the field because it makes you feel like you're part of the USFL. You're part of it, and to be able to be a sideline photographer in the first ever USFL championship, like especially if this league sticks around, like how cool is that? Like I was there, I was on TV, I was like so involved. But yeah, the fans were awesome. They were really involved throughout the game. It was fun because one side was mainly Birmingham and one side was mainly Philadelphia fans. So you kind of had, it was just nuts on both ends. At one point, this was towards the end of the game, Blob and the Birmingham Stallions mascot had a gritty off. And those fans, they loved it. It was hilarious. But that was fun because then, I'd have, fans just yelling at me from the stands, yo, photographer, get our picture. They see me walking by, they start posing, they lift their necklaces and, show off. And I got some pictures of the guys that ended up giving their chain to Scooby Wright after we made the pick six. So it was fun stuff. And kids begging me to give them free t-shirts. I'm like, guys, listen, I just got on the field. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything I'm not supposed to do.
Which I told you why, because I think I told you before with the Spring League Mega Bowl, I saw some little kid get yelled at for trying to snatch one of those championship shirts. So I already know those eyes are watching. One of the funniest moments though is after the game, after we had a little party, we went back to the Airbnb. We're rewatching the game because of course we are, and. I just love the fact of you see Brock Hewitt. I can't remember who he's interviewing. And then you just see you walk in the background, walk past, and then come back in the frame, take a shot, and then walk back out.
Is there a way to edit that clip in really quick?
Oh, I could probably find it. Yeah, I could probably find that and get that in there.
So you guys it's on my Twitter. You've got to go look at it. It's so funny because the thing is and I should have known that it was just everything was such a blur. It was so surreal. I still can't believe that happened. I still feel like it was a dream. I feel like I'm going to wake up Sunday morning in Canton and be like, oh, that never happened. But I walked by and the way the lighting was, the way Brock was turned to Jordan, as a photographer, I was like, oh, this is a sick shot. So I just pulled back, grabbed a shot and walk up. And then as I'm putting the camera back down, I'm like, they're live. And I was like, God, please tell me that they at least left me on the screen. Because, I don't know, because sometimes people walk in the back and they just quickly cut it to something else, So that was cool. And then I ended up, I was in some other spots.
You were all over that game. Every time there's a touchdown,
I'm
you're
right there somewhere. But, that one especially is just such, it's so funny and it's such an authentic moment. It's just it's so cool. I'm going to share it to social media soon, with the image and everything too, side by side. That and the Bo Scarborough, his touchdown. You see me right at the end of that one, just pop up and move positions. And I got some cool shots there. So More content will be coming, folks. Don't you
Yeah,
worry.
and I mean, good quality pictures too. I mean, you weren't messing around. I mean, we have the same camera, but your lens puts my lens to shame. I mean, you came ready with the telephoto lens.
Oh yeah. I'm so glad I brought it. I almost didn't, but it turned out to work out pretty well. The crazy thing though is like my setup is like with my 2 cameras and lenses, like is still like not even half the amount that some of those guys spent on like their 1 camera and lens. Cause like some of that stuff is just incredible.
Some of those telephoto lenses are no joke when you're out on the field. And I can't even imagine what they do. Just seeing what yours does and knowing that theirs is like twice as big. But Zach and I
twice as big and like 5 times as expensive.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're not cheap. That's for sure.
That glass is pristine. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, trying to think of some other funny moments that might have happened on the field. Like so many memories, and like they're all just conjumbled, just because there's so many of them, and everything was just such a blur.
Every time I talk about it, I remember something new too. Like I'm like, oh, that thing happened. Yeah.
I've been trying to like write down as much as I remember, so when it comes back to me, just like write down what happened or whatever. One of the coolest parts for me was when, after the game, and we were trying to find the press conference and whatnot, and then some of the guys were celebrating in the locker room, so I went in there to get some photos, and then you ended up following me in, and next thing we know, we're getting sprayed with champagne by Jamar Smith. So
well, that was the best part of it, because Zach and we were all down in the field. Zach and I came down maybe about 5 minutes before the 4th quarter ended, because I know that they usually block the elevators so the coaches can get down and nobody's messing around with them, right? So Zach and I came around 5 minutes before. We met up with you. We saw the network guys, USFL network guys. Give them a follow as well down there. We were all kind of hanging out.
That was so much fun.
Well, and that was like, what I loved about it though. So we're there, we're getting pictures. I'm live streaming. They're doing the celebration, the fireworks, the confetti's going off. Big smell of sulfur down there, which I was very surprised, like how pungent it was. And then Zach and I, I'm like, where did James go? I was like, I kept running into him. So I call you. I'm like, where are you at? And he's like, I'm in the locker room. I'm like, how the hell did you get in the locker room? So he's like, oh, just go through the main entrance. And I mean, sure enough, we walk in, hang a left, and pop our head in. And there it is. There's James getting his shots. USFL social media people are in there. And I mean, that was probably the most fun moment of the night, is standing there getting the shot, awesome, and just getting blasted with champagne. That's like one of those bucket list items.
Dude, like everyone in there was so hyped. I mean, like, and that's what I love too, is like these guys took this league like so seriously. Like this wasn't just like a little stop in their career. This wasn't just a little thing to get filmed. Like they were pumped to win the first championship. Like they know they have bragging rights. Like they're proud. So like to see them, to see Skip Holtz walk in, like, who wants a cigar? And like everyone starts popping champagne. DeMarcus Gates is like going wild. Scooby Wright doing his shark dog and whatever, and popping champagne bottles. I mean, it's such a fun celebration, and so cool to be one of the few people that was a part of it. It's like,
well, and that's what I love too. We go in there, everyone's lighting up cigars. Clearly, security's like, no, you got to go outside. And I mean, half of them did. Half of them, it took like a good 15 minutes to finally wrangle everyone out. Jamar Smith's looking for a lighter. I'm like, hey, bro, I got a lighter. Here you go. Why the hell not? Even if he, you know what? I'm surprised. I did end up wrangling my lighter back, but I did bait him. I said, hey, can I get a picture? He took the picture. I was like, by the way, you got my lighter? And I got it back. So sign him up. But you could have stole it either way. I wouldn't even be mad. But I had to, dude's looking for a lighter. I got a lighter. That's a funny story to tell in the future for anybody else that watches this.
You literally helped out championship quarterback Jamar Smith light his cigar after winning the game.
Well, and I saw something which leads me to believe we're going to see an expansion of that USFL exhibit. While we were in the locker room, I saw one of the associates from the Hall of Fame, which is right next door, talking jersey, with them and they worked out a deal because Jamar wanted his championship jersey, but they made a deal and he ended up handing it off. So I don't know, but it may be there already. And here's one thing I hope. I kind of hope the championship's in Canton again next year. I mean, it was super fun. There was a lot of construction going on, but I assume a lot of that'll subside by next year. And I mean, our Airbnb was pretty sweet. They did get mad at me. I don't know if you watched last week, but they did get mad that I didn't mention there was 3 people. I didn't even know that mattered. I don't know. I didn't know it mattered. So
I've been so busy with work, I did not catch last week's episode yet. I've been meaning to listen to it. That's hilarious, though.
I'm just like, I mean, and see, I'll tell you this: the Airbnb lady, she's smart in this. I've never had this happen before. She wrote a review about me, but I couldn't read it or see the score until I wrote a review on her. So I wrote this stellar review, just like, and I wasn't lying. The thing, if you're there for football, you want to stay at the football house. It had football stuff all over it. But I write this glowing review, and then I'm like, okay, let's see what she had to say about us. I mean, I felt like we didn't have a party, we didn't like trash the house. So I'm thinking,
there was a couple of things we left in the fridge.
That was what she mentioned. She said, I'm assuming you must be new to Airbnb, and you left things in the fridge, and you had 3 people stay there when it's supposed to be 2. Not cool. Like, really? Is it that big of a deal? But now I know for next year, okay, 3 people are staying. I'm sorry. I don't even know the lady's name. She probably won't even remember me next year. Or if she does, she might deny me. We'll see. Either way, if you haven't been chastised by the football house lady, it's definitely worth a stay. Because, I mean, if the construction wasn't there.
Great, yeah.
If the construction wasn't there, we'd be like, we could walk to our spot. But because construction, we had to go like around the long way. But either way, it was perfect location. Fairly quiet other than the first night, but you missed out on all the shenanigans happening outside. But that's going to happen anywhere you go.
Right.
But locker room party, I mean, that was one of those things that, again, I thought we might be able to make it happen. I wasn't sure. Wouldn't even know when everything's kicking off. Next thing you know, we're there. We do the press conference, which is cool. I got Skip Holtz to answer one of my questions. I basically asked him, when Jamar Smith came out, beyond, putting in Magoo, were there any other adjustments that you were thinking about making? Because, there's a certain point you're down by a couple points. Philadelphia is making a resurgence. And, I mean, he came back with the perfect answer. It actually felt like something you might hear out of Mike Riley with his 2-quarterback system. But he brought it back to, let's not forget, Alex Magoo was the first-round pick. He's always had confidence in him. He was a little shook up coming back into the game, but he listened to the coach. And I think we've all seen the clip of them on the sidelines where Skip's like, I get it. Yes. All right. Just calm down. We're going to win this game. And I mean, you know what? They won the game. I mean, all in all, I don't think it could have been a bigger success for the USFL because, I mean, I guess the big worry for me was, is there that many people that are going to travel out of state to go see the championship, or is there that many people in Ohio that are going to go see the championship that aren't affiliated with any teams? I mean, the semifinals did fairly good. I'd say they didn't do too bad. Started in the beginning of the first game was a little light, but it filled up during the second half and then going into that second game. But, play the championship, I said, okay, well, my hope is we do better than that. I don't know if it was a sellout per se. I don't know, but it was packed. It was packed.
It was definitely not a sellout, but it was a very, very good crowd. And I mean, we were on the field. I mean, that stadium was loud. They were rocking. And especially a couple of those moments. I mean, really every big play it was rocking. Like especially something like those Scooby Wright pick six and like a couple of those Case Cookers touchdowns. I mean, that place went wild. Which is so much fun, and that's what you love to see, is like fans were enjoying high-quality football being played. We've been saying this for years. Spring football is high-quality football. Just because your NFL team isn't playing in it doesn't mean it's bad football. Doesn't mean that those players don't belong on the field. For sure.
Speaking of Scooby Wright.
Take that.
Speaking of Scooby Wright, and actually, if you're looking for that Stallions Championship shirt that's pre-ordered on the USFL shop, Breaking T's got them. We got the USFL Championship shirt, and we got a new Scooby Wright shirt, Scoob and Score Championship version shirt. This is his third. 3 Scooby Wright shirts on Breaking T. And I'll tell you this.
I mean, if he's not the face of the USFL, who is?
Sign him up. And then we also got some like retro-esque team shirts. So if you guys want to go there and you want to support USFL Newsroom, make sure you go to breakingt.com/USFL Newsroom. Because all the purchases chips back to the site. And, I mean, all that money goes back into doing more events, making this as big as possible. Because I'll tell you, I don't make any money off of this. At least not yet. One day. all of it really just goes back into the site dynamic. I mean, I'm amped about season 2. I'm telling you, James.
Oh, yeah.
I can't talk about it yet. Because it's too far out and we don't know the plan. But I'm telling you, I got some wacky ideas in my head for Spring Stock 2. And I mean, it really all depends on how things shake out. But as we learn more about season 2, I'm excited to really plan some more of these events. And I mean, maybe there's more of them. I don't know. Bet. I mean, especially.
I mean, and it was so awesome what we were able to do. I mean, of course, I missed Spring Stock, sadly, which ended up working out because then I covered all those Week 1 games. But being at Summer Stock and being with the Birmingham tailgaters with Ray and his awesome crew, and he's cooking us steaks, and we're hanging out. How cool was that to get like not the whole, but a lot of the big like USFL Twitter / Discord community names. We had Seth Lessons out there. We had Cheese Soda, also known as Jake. We had Ducky, the USFL community legend himself.
USFL Jim.
We had the USFL Network. Zach, you, myself. We had a few other people out there. XFL Jim, CFL Jim, USFL Jim, whatever you want to call them. Yes, exactly. It was. What more could you ask for, man? Spring football.
Well,
Spring Stock, Summer Stock, USFL Newsroom. Sign us up for all of it.
I mean, I'm just so happy we finally made it through a full season. Like I said, we've been doing this site over 4.5 years now. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
4.5 years, almost going to be at our 5-year anniversary at the end of the year. I can't believe that. Like, seriously, I can't believe at the end of this year we'll be doing this website for half a decade. Like that. And only one championship to account for, other than the Spring League.
You can't forget about the Mega Bowl,
which I was there. I had a great post on social media after the Mega Bowl. And, I mean, I had a picture of the crowd from the press box, and there was, like, nobody. It was just, like, family, right? And I posted it on Facebook. I said, I may never go to the Super Bowl, but I can always say I was at the first Mega Bowl. And now I can say I was probably at the last Mega Bowl, too.
The only Mega Bowl.
And
that name is just hilarious.
I loved it. I thought it was funny only because I like dumb things. I know everybody else.
Right, but, like, it perfectly fit the Spring League having that one random season like that. Like, it was...
All I could think about is that Drake meme is like Super Bowl, Mega Bowl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. We got to get someone to make that. Yeah.
But now we got USFL Championship, and that's Laser Eyes Drake. You know what I mean?
Or Laser Eye McMahon, like,
yeah.
falls back in his chair.
Which, oh boy, that's a...
Speaking of McMahon.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he's gone.
And I'm sure a lot of XFL fans were. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think a lot of XFL fans were huge fans of Vince McMahon to begin with. So him leaving, and then some of the things that are coming out, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to comment on it.
I was more just happy that he had a lot of money in his bank account, so that way he could fund the league. But
as that turns out, it didn't. He said, "Oh, it ain't worth it." Yeah, he said, and you know it's funny too because Seth had a whole like a whole thread going about this. I think you were actually in it too, and I think he's on to something. I think at the end of the day, if he would have held on to it, he probably would have made out better than sending it to bankruptcy. But I'll tell you this, through the grapevine from a couple people that were still in touch with folks at the league at the time, there was a rumor going around that he was trying to go for bankruptcy court to buy it back on the cheap. And at first I thought it was a little loony, but I spoke to a couple people that said, no, I'm pretty sure that's what he was trying to do. And then there was some legal issues because, I mean, well, that clearly pissed off a lot of people that he owed money. And then at that point, I think he just thought it wasn't worth it. And I mean, he kind of pounded off to somebody that he's close with on, I mean, the cheap, because I'll tell you, I'm not going to say what networks, but I've heard some rumors that there was a couple networks that were interested in buying the league upwards of $100 million. And I mean, then we saw it go for 15.
There was definitely certain networks I can confirm that definitely had offered a lot more money and then didn't get it. So very strange. And the world of spring football is quite the place, to say the
Well,
least.
that's why I always say you're never going to have spring football with a little touch of drama on top, man. I mean, you look at
Of course.
well, the AAF season like purposely encapsulated that because it was like week 1, main investor gone. Week 2, rumors that people aren't getting paid. Week 3, Tom Dundon, sweet, we're saved. Week 8, Tom Dundon, you know what I mean? And so,
yes, son of a gun.
What a whirlwind. And then, I mean, clearly with the XFL 2020, that one was a little beyond their.
Oh, and speaking of which, this is a bit out of left field, but I just gotten off, which if you guys didn't know this, I was just on the Markcast podcast, and we actually just recorded that earlier today. So go check out that episode if you haven't yet. But what I talked about with him is Daryl Johnson. I am so happy for that guy because he was the general manager of the San Antonio Commanders. He was doing his best to manage that whole situation. Boom. Gone. Tom Dundon just ends everything. Then, several months later, he's like, spring football's back. He gets hired to be the director of player personnel for the Dallas Renegades, puts together a great squad. I know they were 2-3, but I mean, they were probably going to be the second. Them or LA were going to make the playoffs, and it was going to come down to the wire, I think. But I mean, they were a playoff team, and they were playing great. Week 5, COVID, gone. 2 years, the rise and fall of 2 spring leagues. And the next thing you know, next year, he takes over as vice president of a full spring football league and leads them to successful season. So pretty cool story there.
And what's great, too, is he's like a salt of the earth kind of guy, too. I mean, we both had a chance to meet him at the game. Super friendly, super nice.
Oh, yeah.
But even looking back at like United by Football, the early episodes in the season, you see him loading and unloading those buses. He's putting in equipment. He's grabbing bottles, like the Gatorade bottles. Like he is there on the ground floor. He's not there just collecting a paycheck.
He's exactly the guy that you want to run a league like this. I mean, he's down to earth. And I mean, he was a player, so he knows what it's like. He knows what these guys are going through. He knows, the ups and the downs and the struggles, and he just wants to provide more opportunities for these guys. And I think, Johnson, Eric Shanks, Brian Woods, everyone else involved just did such a spectacular job this year. I mean, what more could you have asked for? And again, we don't have to get too far into detail here because we're running out of time. But, I know there's the complaints and the controversies about this and that and the hub and the stands and the people and the fans. At the end of the day, the USFL and Fox is providing us with spring football, high-quality spring football of that. They're providing so many opportunities to players, coaches, personnel, analysts, people. There's so many jobs that they're creating, and they're going to continue to create them as we continue on in Season 2, 3, and 4 and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. Yeah. Stoked for
I'm
the future.
Looking forward to it. I'm proud of the team that we've been able to build. I'm glad that I somehow got you on this team early too, because I mean, you stuck through it, man. You stuck through the spring league, and now you got rewarded, man. It was karma coming to fruition.
I joined the team right as The Rock bought the league. Which the funny thing is, because obviously writing's been something I've been pursuing for a while. I had been covering the XFL a bit for the Brawl Network, which was a smaller online network for creators, and they just pulled the plug out of nowhere and kind of just left me hanging. I had tried to start writing for the XFL Press. They didn't even get back to me. And then as a last-ditch effort, you had posted something like you wanted writers. So it's and this was after 2 had already failed. So I was like, I'll give it a go. The next thing I know, I sent you a piece. We got hooked together, and here we are running a website together. So, hey, I can't wait for this journey ahead. It's going to get even better from here.
Well, but it's only going to get bigger and better because, next year.
We don't got any bottles or anything, but cheers to us for getting through a full season finally.
Well, that's exactly right. And that
where's your ducky card?
Yeah. Cheers the ducky cards. Chink.
Cheers to the ducky card.
Well, and that's the thing is now going into it next year, you're not maybe a veteran, but you got one of these under your belt. And I'll tell you, every time you do one of these events or go to these games, it gets a little bit easier anytime, just like anything does too. I mean, I'm kind of a wacky lunatic, so I just don't care. I don't get embarrassed. I don't, whatever. If I say something dumb, I feel like it's part of my charm, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's how you're supposed to live life. Be yourself.
Exactly right.
I'm all for that.
So, thanks for coming on here this week, hooking it up, because I used to do the show alone. Well, not this show, but I used to do Sign Me Up Saturday this week in the XFL. And it's fun to a certain extent, but it's so much easier having a co-host. And we're definitely going to have you on with Zach.
We gotta start getting some three-way shows,
for sure,
three-person shows going, because I would love to definitely get more involved with that too. For sure.
And I'm thinking, well, we'll talk off air, but I got some thoughts in my mind. But maybe it's something like once a month we do like a live stream instead of a pre-recorded episode. We have you jump on. I know that the USFL Network guys and the USFL Show guys both want to try to set up like a group show. But maybe we have you come on there as well, just to kind of even it out. Because there's we saw the network guys. There's like a million of those guys. And then the show guys, there's 3 of them. So at least it'll be 3 on 3. We'll take them. So any final words before we head off into the sunset here?
Well, I think the last couple of comments I made summed it all up. I'm just for one, I'm privileged and thankful that we can work together and continue to really just market spring football and just keep pushing the stories and the players and the recaps and all that. And secondly, again, I'm just so stoked for the future of the league. I'm so happy that thank the Lord, we made it through one season. I mean, prayers have been answered. And now it's time to head into season 2. And I don't see, as long as we don't have an alien invasion, we should be well on our way to season 2.
Or World War III. That I will not lie. That is the one where I'm like, well, that's the only thing that could stop it. And then I look around me. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Don't do that. Don't do it. All right. I got football to watch. You don't be doing this to me. Before we part, though, one last thing. Let everybody know how they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much at James Larsen MI on all social media, like Twitter and Instagram and those. So at James Larsen, LARSENMI. That's Twitter is probably the best spot to go if you want to follow what I do, sports world, USFL, and all that. Of course, USFL Newsroom, XFL, all things Pro Football Newsroom, really. And of course, podcast episodes and whatever else I come up with. It's all over there. Photos, articles, you name it.
And that's what I kind of love about today's episode too, is it's almost like a throwback to the Monday Night Wars of like WWF and WCW, because you're on this show and the Markcast today, which I personally have no issues with. I know everyone online just assumes that we hate each other. Reed and I have talked before in the past. I mean, Reed used to post his podcast on our site, so sign him up. I don't know if he's listening, but if he is, sign him up.
I mean, hey, I don't have any squabbles with anybody, and for me, spring football, let's be united by football and just push all spring football leagues. I mean, we need
That's what I'm saying. There's no room for the inner squabblings. I mean, especially for my stress level and sanity, my life is way too stressful to try to just stress about what leagues I'm gonna like. I love spring football, so let's just keep it rolling. I'm with you there. I don't think there's anything else that we could say. I think that's the perfect way to end this off. So everybody online, make sure you follow us at USFL Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Click the bell. It builds morale. Until next time, sign everybody up.